All right. We're going to kick this off and talk about you're a busy lady. You've got businesses. You've got your own brand. You are a mom. You are a sister. You are a daughter. You are a wife. You are a daughter-in-law. That by itself is its own, right? Okay. So how do you prioritize self-care in your life? And what does that look like for you?
I think the older I've gotten, the more I've really realized how important it is to prioritize the things that are important to me and to say no to the things that aren't, because my personality in general, just if someone needed something or wanted me or pulled me in a certain direction, I would always say yes. And realizing that maybe I was nurturing relationships that I shouldn't be investing in or putting my time into something that wasn't benefiting me or our family, and learning to step back and say, I can say no to these things because I need to make sure that I'm taking care of myself before I'm helping all of these people with the things that they need taken care of. And that right there allotted me so much more freedom to pick and choose the things that are important to me and to really help the people that I should be helping. Yeah. And maybe not helping the people that don't need my help as much. And that really opened up a whole new space for me to spend more time with my family and to do the things that are important to me and to take care of myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So what does a take care of yourself regime look like for you? What is nurturing for you? What fills you up?
I love quality time with my friends. It is important to me to get out and be with my girlfriends and to be able to have those conversations with them and to reflect on all of the seasons of our life right now and what's happening. And that's a big one for me, is getting time with them. Working out. If I could manage to do it every day, I would, but it's definitely a treat when it gets squeezed in somewhere. But growing up, I was always a runner. And so running was a big part of my life, and carving out time to get outside and go for a run is definitely a way that I can recharge myself and kind of focus all my thoughts and clear my head a little bit. And it is even almost like a spiritual thing for me, is getting out and I'm alone with my thoughts. I'm outside, and it just gives me kind of time to really work through and process whatever has been going on for the past few days. And so trying to squeeze that in is definitely a big one. Yeah. And then the last one, not in any specific order, but time with Aaron is also a really big thing that it's taken us a long time to really realize how important that time for the two of us is, and how that really affects the whole dynamic of our family when we are in a good place and communicating and happy. And that takes time for just the two of us to really make all of that work.
And I think you guys do a good job of that. Because I get to, kind of observe you from afar. I mean, you just had a weekend together last weekend, and I did, but it is intentional. It is a purposeful thing. It's not something I think that comes naturally. I mean, that's something that Brady and I too decided early on, especially when he was traveling a lot. And Aaron definitely has seasons where he travels a lot, and you're very busy in Spokane with your stuff. But you have to like Brady and I are okay, when he was traveling a lot, every 3 to 4 months, I would go on a trip with him. And we were lucky that we had resource. Kids were young, but we had helpers. We had family that could help us, but we had to make that a priority.
Absolutely.
And you have to almost, and you guys do that really well. And I want to say that busyness is not an excuse, people. There's no one busier than this woman and her husband, but they still make time for it. So it makes a difference.
Yeah. Deciding to continue to date my husband after 12 years of marriage is a big deal. And it's amazing how we can have a few weeks where you just kind of feel like roommates, and you're just kind of living in the same space and surviving parenthood and taking care of these kids and all the things. And, I'll say, we got to get a sitter. We got to get out tonight, and just to be able to sit and have a conversation and reconnect. It's amazing how fast it recharges and brings such a reminder as to how much we love each other and how important we are to each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. confidently setting boundaries and, in that space in your life. And you touched on a little bit earlier about knowing what to say yes and no to, but even just boundaries within relationships, because I did an episode with my family to kick this off a few months ago. And Sierra said something that really resonated. And I think it happens a lot with us. She's like, sometimes you don't need you need a boundary until you start bumping into something. You're like, oh, wow. Okay. That needs a boundary. Yeah. Talk about that, how you've navigated that, because you work with your family. Mm-hmm. You've got Aaron's family, you've got, so all those places need boundaries. I'm like, when does it become work? When is it family time?
Right.
And then just boundaries so that you have the space to go away with your husband for a weekend, to have some time just with your kids. Talk to me about your boundaries and how that works for you.
Yeah. I mean, the work family relationship dynamic is definitely an interesting one. And it took my mom and I quite a few years to really iron that out, because at the end of the day, she is always going to be my mother and, a level up above the level that I'm at. And so she gets to make the calls and she gets to make the shots. And that was hard, wanting to feel more like we were a team instead of, that there was a hierarchy in line.
Yeah.
But I think learning to communicate with her and to know when to step back and, let her win this time, mm-hmm. in order for me to win next time, and to really learn how the two of us can work together was huge. And it wasn't an easy feat. I mean, it took us a while to really dig into it. And I think that my brother has gone through the same process, although I 100% know that relationships between mothers and sons and mothers and daughters are completely different. So
they really are.
So I'm not sure if my brother Ben had as many struggles as I did in the beginning, but I came to learn to a certain point that I can only control so much, and learning that I can't control her choices. I can't force her to take time off. I can't force her to rest. Mm-hmm. I can't make her do anything she doesn't want to do, because she is a very strong-willed woman. Mm-hmm. And once I let that go and told myself it was okay for me to step back a little, it was okay for me to rest. It was okay for me to go do something fun on a night that the restaurants were open. That was a really big moment for me when I stopped worrying so much about me trying to take care of her, because she wasn't open to it. She didn't want to be taken care of. Yeah. And then realizing that I needed to then take care of myself instead. Sure. And that's really when things turned around for us.
Wow.
It made a huge difference in our relationship and our boundaries there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you brought, especially for you as a naturally caring, nurturing person anyway, it's your natural inclination to be like, you need to, so to be able to like, all right, I need to create this. She doesn't want this. I can't control it. I need to release it and not take it on. That's a big thing, especially for someone who's built like you. Mm-hmm. Taking care of our emotional health as much as our physical health. I would say, based on my experience, very connected. Like if one's not being dealt with well or at all, or in a not a healthy way, I feel it in my body. How about you? How does that work for you? Because you're younger than me, so maybe he hasn't caught you yet.
No, absolutely. I mean, I know when I have taking care of myself and I'm in a good place, I'm a better wife, I'm a better mother, I'm a better friend, I feel better, I have more energy. Really getting all of those things to align is huge. Now, it takes a lot of work and effort on my part to get me to that place. Mm-hmm. And I have to have, a team of people behind me supporting me to get me to that place. I mean, sure. We have a nanny who comes to our house 3 days a week, and God bless her. She is a lifesaver, because that gives me space to help take care of the things that I need, take care of myself, mm-hmm. Manage the house and taking care of the things here at the house. I have little bit of like OCD in the fact that if I don't feel like the house is picked up, I feel overwhelmed and like disorganized. And, you know, it's just the big downhill spiral from there. So knowing that I need those things to feel taken care of in my life and allowing myself to have someone come in a few days a weekend to help me. Yeah. Really is what does it all. I mean, I had a conversation with one of my girlfriends. I don't know, it's been a little while, but about how women are so reluctant to ask for help. Yes. And we want people to think we can do it on our own. We don't need help. I don't want someone to think that I can't do it. Mm-hmm. And then I go through this insane amount of work to try to prove that I can do it, but it doesn't actually make me happy in the end because I made myself miserable trying to do it. Yeah. And exhausted. Right. And I probably didn't do it as well as I could have had I just asked someone for help. Yeah. I think that I was trying to I had a new baby and preschool needed birthday treats and I made birthday treats. And instead of calling my mom or my friend and saying, hey, can you hold the baby for 20 minutes while I run over to Jack's school and drop off birthday treats? I insisted on taking the baby, loading all the stuff in, and I mean, I just thought this was so silly. Yeah. Why did I need to prove that I could take care of my baby and provide whatever Jack needed in that moment at the same time? And I think it was a really pivotal moment for me when I realized, ask for help. Yeah. You have so many people who want to help you. Yes. I mean, there are not that many people who are going to turn down 20 minutes with a brand new baby to snuggle while I run to Jack's school. But in my mind, I wasn't capable. I wasn't a good enough mother if I couldn't juggle all of those balls at the same time. Yeah. Really stepping back and being like, this is so stupid. I just exhausted myself. My baby's screaming. I spilt treats. And so it could have been so much easier, but I made it harder on myself because of this idea that I put in my own head of what it needed to be. Yeah. Put it in your own head. But I think the culture has put that in our heds as women. It's built this model of women of this is what it looks like to do it all. And this is what it looks like. And I appreciate your honesty and your authenticity in saying no, because I think so many more of us, I wish I look back at my space and time when my kids were your age and we were in that mode. I'm like, man, an investment I would have made is having someone come in and clean the house. Mm-hmm. Even just once a month, just because I wasn't getting to it more than once a month anyway. Right. But that releasing that need to be this superwoman thing, this complex, and there's these expectations that are put on that I think we have to start calling, no, we're not going to do that. And the joke is really, I've said this in different ways through different episodes, but the joke's kind of on the culture because you're not getting the best of us when we're trying to do all those things. Right. Because you're not getting our best effort. You're getting a half effort because we're just trying to keep up. So yes. I love that you recognize that. And you're going to look back on this time when you're going to be healthier. And two, your kids are going to have kids remember all these, things and they remember what we model because we can say one thing and model another. And your kids are going to see, a mom that took the time to do these things so that she could have space for herself to be a best person. They're going to see parents that love each other that took the time. That's just such good stuff. Thank you so much for that. So how can we support ourselves and other women in living unapologetically? Because in not saying, oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't do it all. Or we tend to say sorry for a lot of things. We walk down the street and somebody bumps into us and we say sorry, but even just the choices you've made that we were just talking about, talk to me how we can do that as women and how you do that. Because you do that in a lot of ways. I mean, I think that one, we have to stop being so competitive with each other. I don't know why women are so competitive with each other, and it kind of goes back to the first question that you asked me on choosing the right people in your life. Mm-hmm. And I think that to a point I started to realize there's people in my life that are toxic, that aren't here to support me or help me, who just make me feel bad. And those aren't the kind of people that I need in my life to help get me to where I need to be. Sure. And once I really aligned with the people who I find most important in my life and people that that you can count on and know that I can call on them when I need help, or that they can call on me when they need help, that sets everything into play. I mean, I have girlfriends who at the drop of a dime will be like, you're having a crappy day, I'm swooping up your kids, you go take a bath. I'll bring them back in an hour and a half. And that's the kind of community that I think is important to surround yourself with, to really help make sure that you can be your best self.
Absolutely.
And I am super grateful for those women in my life to help get me to those points.
Yeah, that is such a blessing. And I noticed that because I follow your social media stuff. And I love that you have that community, that sense of, because I think sometimes we don't think we have time. And so in this space of life you're in, when you're raising kids and you're working and you're doing all, you're married and your family and all these things, you're like, you're like, no, I can't take time for that. Those relationships are so important. I have my ride or dies. I've got 3 to 4 friends that are my ride or dies that have been with me, some since 3rd grade, some since, moms together, whatever it is. But I know no matter where, and we've lived all over the place, but I know where, no matter where I am in the country, I can drop everything and they will be there for me. And those relationships, those people that are for you, and those people that won't lie to you, they will tell you, you're a little grumpy today. Let me help you out. Yeah. It makes all the difference in the world, and it allows us to, we don't have to feel like we can be authentic with them. We're not apologizing. We're not feeling bad. We're lifting each other up, because you're right about this whole, I think we got to be for each other. It's a tough world out there for women, and we've got to be for each other and not allow the culture and the things that kind of play against that to break us apart. So thank you for speaking to that. I love that. The importance of setting and coming back to your why in everything you do, because you have some very specific things that you're involved with that are very authentically you. All these spaces that you live in are very authentically you. They truly show your creativeness, your nurturing, your hospitality. So talk to me about that why and how because you touched on it earlier, learning how to say no to the things. And that's such an important lesson to learn. For your own sanity and space, and not allowing others to kind of define that for you, which we'll talk about more in a minute too. But talk to me about your why and how you came to that and have made choices out of that.
I think that at some point I just realized where my talents lay, and that instead of not necessarily hiding them, but choosing to nurture them.
Yeah.
And that when I do that, everybody gets the best of me.
Yeah.
And finding the space of things that I was already doing on a daily basis and putting it out there for everybody was really important to me. For people to be able to see like, oh, this is something I could do. Like, she made this so easy.
Yeah.
And once I really learned what my gifts were and how I could share them with people, it just kind of opened up a whole new side of me that I never knew was there.
Yeah.
And I haven't looked back yet.
Yeah. And it comes through so clearly. I love following your Honey Housewife Instagram, because, and you got to follow that, people, and the link will be in the show notes, because I am not the amazing creative. That's not one of my gifts. My creativity shows up in different ways than Megan's, but she will show you a drink that if you just looked at the drink, or you'd be like, oh, that looks like a lot of work. And she'll just do it. And you're like, oh, I can do that. And that looks awesome. I'm going to go get this stuff right now. Or she'll do something in her house. She'll put some decorations up, because I love a house that looks cool during the seasons, but I steal everybody else's ideas, because that's just not how my brain works. She puts stuff up. You're like, oh, I can do that too. So, and it does come through, and I love that. So that was a little off track, but it's just such an example of you truly do live out of your truest form of your why. And even in the restaurant business, the things that you do, that you create within that, it comes through also. So I love that you identified that and embracing it, because I think sometimes we're like, oh, that one went, I don't need to expose that one, or that one won't do as much, or that might not be the best thing for, profitability or whatever it is. But you leaned into your why, and I love that. So thank you for sharing that. out of your own expectations versus others' expectations of you. Talk about that and your journey in that.
I know I've said this once before already, but the older you get, the less you care.
Yeah.
And I think back, if there was anything I could tell my younger self, it would stop caring what other people think so much. Yeah. It doesn't matter. No. It doesn't matter at all what anybody else thinks of me.
Yeah.
And so once I finally got to the point where I was like, I don't care. I'm going to do what makes me happy, and I'm going to live this life that I want to live. And I don't care what anyone else thinks. It became so much easier to truly fall into place at where I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it wasn't hard. It was natural.
Yeah.
And it's still true now. There are many times where my best self comes out when I stop thinking about, was someone going to like this? Is someone, is this going to go over well or whatever? And it's really made a huge difference.
Yeah. And just taking the stress off yourself. And I think too, because you've surrounded yourself with the right people and people that are pouring into you and caring about you, they're for you. That takes a lot of the relief off too, because it's all connected.
Yeah.
We surround ourselves with the voices we choose to listen to, and the voices that we're like, no, they just don't understand this part of me. And that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to fill myself with the people that do, and I'm going to live out of a life that I feel is most authentic to me. So I think that's so important. Accepting the layered aspects of ourselves. And what I mean by that is, I call it the Instagram life. Everybody kind of looks at everybody's Instagrams and they are like, think that that's what life should look like. And we all know that that's, we put up the highlights, It's just not true. We all have portions of ourselves that or seasons in our life that aren't great or aren't full. I mean, my whole episode this last week about myself was like about me embracing layers about part of my life that I didn't love, but having to bring that in. So talk to me about embracing the different layers, the different seasons, and incorporating that into who you are today.
Well, I think that, you have to take life with the good, the bad, and the ugly. And as much as I would wish that our lives could be all beautiful all the time, like that's just not realistic. There's going to be some hard, and there's going to be some tricky, and there's going to be moments of like sadness. And I think it's those moments that are really going to turn us into the people that we are becoming and help us to be able to acknowledge when we see other people with those struggles. And because we've been through it, how we can help them to get through it.
Yeah.
But I think that there's just moments in life that are hard. And as much as I don't want them to be there, they needed to be there. And I think that especially on the platforms that we have today, it's important to show those moments and to try to be as honest as we can about them and let other people know that maybe what they think the expectation isn't actually what it is. Mm-hmm. And just taking it step by step and appreciating the journey.
Yeah, the journey. I think you hit it on there, is appreciating the journey, because I think I used to have this idea of getting on the other side of things instead of, and Brady has been always great about that. He's like, enjoy the journey. I'm like, journey schmurney, let's check it off the list and move on to the next thing. And I've learned that no, it's all part of it. It's all part of us becoming who we are. And I think too, the empathy piece, as we walk these things out and embrace all of our layers, it builds empathy as people are walking through it. Too, and we recognize, let me walk this out with you because I've been there and I've done that. So I think that creates all that space too. Cultivating healthy relationships with others, which is really, I would say, all these things we've been talking about. If you aren't putting them into play some way, it's going to be difficult to cultivate healthy relationships with others. But talk about that again, because again, you work very closely with family, and talk about cultivating and how all your practices help that.
I think, to me, friends and family are just so near and dear to me. And it's definitely work. It's work to build those relationships and maintain those relationships. But the payout from that work is just so important.
Yeah.
And I think that making time to build those relationships is important, but really figuring out who your community is and maintaining those relationships is what's going to help you thrive in life.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, extra steps in thinking, okay, my mom's called me 3 days in a row. I should probably reach out to her. She probably needs to hear from me instead of her calling to check on me. Like those little moments in life where you're like, okay, I need to like stop for a minute and think like, have I checked in on so-and-so? Like I should send him a little text. How are you doing? I'm thinking of you. Or, make a play date, plan to take a walk before you pick kids up from school, or just, even if it's just a moment, like it really makes a big difference. I mean, even for myself, when I'm like, oh, my friend was thinking about me, like that means a lot to me to know that she cares or she wants to know what's going on, or that, and keeping those relationships strong.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you're very relationally driven, and you do a really good job of navigating that. And I think I think you're such a great example of that, because you've got plenty of excuses and reasons to not put the time in. You're not short on things to do each day, but I think that your life is so much richer because you do take the time to do that. And I think that is that's a difference maker. All right. What are some practices you use to process your emotions in healthy ways?
Like I said earlier, running.
Yeah.
Running for me has always been if I'm struggling with something or whatever, like I just need to get out and run. I ran a lot during lockdown.
Me too.
I was a really great runner for that year. Just like any opportunity, it would be like snowing and 20 degrees outside. I'm like, I got to get outside. I got to get out of this house. I'll see you guys in an hour.
Yep.
So running is definitely a big one for me. I love to be outside.
Yeah.
I love to be in the mountains. I love to be in the fresh air. I love to explore. I love to watch the kids explore. So for me, like getting outside, if we're having a bad day or a struggle, like let's take a walk. Let's go out to like Riverside State Park. Let's go down over the bluff. Like, let's just get outside and be in nature. And it's just so healing for me to see all of the beauty that God has made and to kind of like put it back into perspective for me of, okay, like you're struggling with this moment, like this moment will pass. Like, let's take some deep breaths and like be outside and kind of rejuvenate a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys, you took a trip earlier this summer where you essentially just said to Aaron, I need to go to the mountains. Let's go. And you did. And I loved that too, because again, you all are busy. You've got a lot going on, but you recognize the need and you took the time to do it. And that's just so healthy.
And it was amazing. We had the time of our lives.
Yeah. And you come
awesome.
back fresher. I mean, you come back with all these things you're involved with just a fresh, renewed, rested perspective. And so I saw that. I'm like, oh, good for you guys. You guys do that really well. And I think too, you brought up an important moment as we all went through COVID. I was working at home for 15 months. And so I had to create this practice of at 5 o'clock, I had to walk out of my house. Some days I got in the car, I drove around the block and came home. If it was, the weather wasn't good or I didn't want to do that, I did something to separate that stop time at work and start time with personal life outside of work. And, sometimes you just had to do that. And I think it took me a few months to realize, oh, I'm not creating separation here. So just understanding like, nope, it's time to go do that.
Yeah.
And go back in, because I think that's something we all kind of bumped into a lot during that time. How do you live out feel? Finding empowerment, embracing layers.
Oh, I mean, I definitely feel empowered when I'm creating. There's nothing that like makes me feel more confident in myself than starting a project and finishing a project and being like, I'm good at this. This turned out really great. Like, this maybe exceeded my expectations, and feeling that like moment of pride of like, okay, I did that.
Yeah.
And really like being okay with nurturing that confidence in myself is okay.
Yes.
Because I think we get to a point where a lot of times where we can't boast about ourselves or boast about our talents or what we did because you come off arrogant or cocky but I think that it's important to see that in ourselves of
absolutely.
Like, hey girl, yes, you did it. That's awesome. It looks beautiful.
Yeah.
And to have that sense of like pride in yourself.
Well, just self-love.
Yes.
It's like God made me to do this and that's good. I should be shouting about this.
Yes.
But you're right, though. We have this false sense of humility. Like we almost have to do the opposite thing. It's like, no. How we talk to ourselves is so much about how we feel about ourselves. And it's not being afraid of because if we love ourselves well and we are nurturing that parts of us, we're going to love others better. And so I love that you spoke to that. Yeah. What was it like getting to this point? I mean, how many, because you launched Honey Housewife, was it been a couple years ago?
A year now.
Oh, a year now. Okay. What was it like getting to that point in terms of, did you have to try some different things to kind of determine what it was going to look like? Or did you know going in?
I had talked about it for a good couple years before I actually did it. And, a lot of that was fear holding me back. And it took a lot for me to be like, I can do this. And I think that this is beneficial to people. And I think that there's enough space for me in this realm. And it took a lot. It really did take a lot for me to get to a point where I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And it took my husband pushing me and being like, why aren't you sharing this? It really was things I was doing all the time anyway, setting tables and hosting parties and cooking meals and stuff. And he's like, people want to see this. You might as well.
She has the most beautiful tables, people. You're going to want to see, especially with the holidays coming. Oh.
Thank you. So it just got to a point where I was like, it's silly. I'm already doing the work.
Right.
It's just the extra step of taking pictures and writing about it and putting it out there. And, like I said, I've got amazing friends and they all said the same thing. Like, why aren't you putting this out there? You should be putting this out there. People need to see what you're creating. And it finally just took a leap and the rest is history. Here we are.
Awesome. Oh, I love that. And I love that we need those hype people in our life. I mean, Brady's the same way. When I decided to launch this podcast, I talked about being a voice for a while and talking about these things. And it was Brady's birthday last March and he wanted to do a dream wall on his birthday. He's like, let's do a dream wall. That's what the activity I want to do today. I was like, okay. And we did a dream wall and it was like, this was up there and and my dreams ended up getting launched out of that day. But having those people in your life, because at first I was like, oh, I don't know. He's like, why not?
What's stopping you?
Yeah, exactly. But having those voices of encouragement that kind of help us, again, goes back to those healthy relationships and the people we surround ourselves with. We're coming down to the end here. So I've got a rapid fire for you. And we've talked about these. So this will kind of be a wrap up because we've talked about these activities throughout the podcast. But name 5 activities that nourish you.
Running, baking, time with my family, time with my husband, time with my friends.
Awesome. Okay. And 5 words on how you want to feel the next 6 months.
Oh boy. I want to feel healthy. I want to feel strong. I want to feel confident. I want to feel empowered. And I want to feel content.
I like that. I love that. All right, Megan, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, knowing how mindful you are of your time, that you took a little time to spend with me and with our podcast audience. Again, everyone, you're going to want to know what this woman is doing. If you're not already following her already, if you're in the Spokane area, you're going to want to eat at the places that her family has going because they are awesome, delicious. And I'm not, trust me, follow Honey Housewife. Those holiday tables are going to be, and you can do them. You can do them. If I can do them, you can do them. So
well, my goal is to help people walk step by step through all of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. She walks it out, and you get to see pictures of her cutie kids, and sweet Erin, who is still 12 in my mind, but because I think that's about how old he was the first time I met him. Thanks so much again, embracinglayers.com, people, for all those resources at Embracing Layers. And thanks so much, Megan, and y'all have a great week.